Well, greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. See you later. No, wherever you are, the time zone, it's, God bless you guys. And Heidi and I are in the great state of Utah, United States. And Louis and Sabi are in the Philippines, which is, the more I learn about it, the more interesting it gets. You should go on YouTube and look History of Philippines. A lot of stuff for a long time, there before there was the United States. So anyway, it's interesting. So let's see. Just wanted to show you guys this little, we have so much stuff going on in the world right now. And it's really hard. And you have the war, it's just unprovoked war in Ukraine, just for one example, just for the hell of it, because Putin's ego wants his old empire back. The only problem is nobody wants to be a part of his empire anymore, because they used to be a part of his empire. His empire sucked, How would you like to live in a country controlled by the KGB and be hauled off if you call the war a war? No, thank you. Don't think so. So anyway, but if you look up here, let's see if I can scoot up here. This is a little kind of memorial I have up there. If you can see that it is the Buddha in the middle, and on this side is an old German helmet from World War I, which they used in the trenches, and they also used them in World War II because they were a lot of them left over. And the other side, you can't quite see it, but it's an American helmet from World War II, actually from that period. And you have the Buddha, and Germany and getting a tour of my studio there. Germany and the United States engaged in two world wars, fighting against each other in the 20th century. With millions of people killed, and one of the horrible things that ever happened in our benighted human history. And now, what are we, 70, 80 years on from that? And Germany and the United States are very strong allies and they're friends. We have, family disagreements every once in a while, but in general, it's very good, both economically and, I've lived in Germany and have German friends. And who would have thought in 1945, looking to the future, that Germany would be a, successful democracy as it is now, and one of the adults on the scene. And they make mistakes like anybody else, but they generally try to do the right thing, and it's incredibly admirable what they've done. And the U.S., we get along. So you look at these things, and look at Japan again, this huge world war, and just all of this stuff. And now we're very close, and both democracies, although we're struggling with that in the United States, but I think democracy is something we're struggling for, something we're fighting for, as the Ukrainians have taught us. Some things are worth fighting for and dying for. But peace can be achieved in areas where you think that the enmity and hatred would be endless and no way out. And it ain't so. So we can make peace, and more than just, we can be at peace with one another. Not just not the absence of shooting at each other, but actually be friends and cooperate and treat each other with admiration, love, and respect. In a very, very short time historically, that's happened. So, and I know this is maybe jumping the gun, but someday I can see that Ukraine and Russia will have that somewhere down the line. I don't know. Maybe this is a bit much, but we'll be able to appreciate and love each other again in a peaceful way. And they are related. There's like so many Russians and Ukrainians have family members across the borders, just like, just let these people be, let them have their country. You don't think they A real country. Well, they seem to think they're a real country. So why don't you take their word for it instead of your inflated ego? Okay, I'll get off Putin. Putin, I hope you wake up. I'm sending you that energy. But we can't do that with Putin today. But what can we do? We can work on ourselves. And that's always, that's good. So, yeah, so this is our once a week we get together. But hopefully, a lot of us who are here for the first time or been here for a while, we've understood the importance of practice and taking that time out every day to make an appointment with your higher power, with your higher self, with God, with Jesus, with Spirit, with Allah, with your ancestors. Anyway, whatever, in whatever way the sacred shows up in your life, and just say, okay, just as if you have a beloved, a wife or a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or whatever it is, and you just say, hey, sweetie, every day I just want to spend some time with you when we're not looking at our goddamn phones and, doing this and that. We just get together and we just hang out. So think of this as just as a time to hang out with your beloved, your deepest self, the inner self. That's the source of everything, and as the ancient Vedic mystics taught us thousands of years ago, and they were the first ones that ever wrote it down, is that Atman is Brahman and Brahman is Atman. And Atman is that place in your soul, the deepest part of yourself, where the consciousness, with conscious connection with God, lives. Okay. So when we go namaste, right, we're honoring the divinity within you. And you should do that with your dog, because I'm very sure that God resides in dogs. I'm still working on cats. I'm not too sure. I'm kidding, Heidi. Cats, God is in cats too. So amen to that. So it's a time to spend with the sacred, and if you don't do that, we get out of balance, and we postpone our reckoning with reality, and at a certain point that becomes so painful that for many of us anyway, that I'm going to do this now. I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to do this practice. I'm going to pray because I need that connection with spirit, and conscious contact says in step 11 and 12 steps. Conscious contact. It's one thing just to, I believe in God because, well, I started studying physics and astronomy and all of these things, and it just makes no sense. Everything went poof, and here we are. There's something going on here. There is a consciousness, and what is the nature of that consciousness? Then we have the great traditions that have shed light on it, and then we have our own experiences. And often when we are children, we'll have an experience of just ding. We'll just get it, And my wife Pam, she was a little older. She was like 18 or 19, but she fell into a flower. And there she was. I am everything, and everything is me, and it is amazingly beautiful. And as Thomas Merton said, he had his moment of enlightenment when he became enlightened, the famous Christian mystic and monk. It just shows you can happen anywhere. He was on downtown St. Louis, on the sidewalk, and just busy time, and there's people everywhere, and all of a sudden, boom. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, "It is a wonder that people don't know that each one of them is radiant like the sun." So he saw through this, this reality, and saw through the divinity of each person in St. Louis on the streets. And they even have a statue there where Merton had his moment, where he woke up. So, and how does this thing happen? It happens. Some of it has happened gradually, some of us have big wang bang experiences. And then we're just awake. And I've only heard about those people in storybooks. I've never really met one. It seems that What is the German guy, the mystic, talks like this? Uh, Help me out here. I can't hear you. You're on
Eckhart.
mute. Eckhart Tolle. Yes, indeed. Eckhart Tolle. And he was sitting on a park bench in some place in Canada. Dun, 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 dun. And all of a sudden, God goes, blam. He woke up. But most of us, that would be really nice. But most of us, it just takes time and practice and accumulation. And, the light, just like watching the sun come up here, in the morning, you see that false dawn, you see the little light in the east, and then it'll come, and that's the way it seems to go. And it may go that way from lifetime to lifetime. I'm not sure, but just as energy is something the physicists have taught us doesn't go away. Energy is never lost. Okay, it's transformed. Well, I think the same thing is consciousness. So whatever the consciousness we are, doesn't die, doesn't go away. It's there, and how that looks in the next phase after death is, I don't know. It's a mystery. We have lots of data, or a lot of people have told us these things, and the body actually decreases a bit in weight when you die. There's something that goes out. Consciousness weighs something. It's very strange. But there's lots of people who have died medically, and they come back and they have very amazing experiences. So they come back and say, "Hey guys, whoa, 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 wait a second. We're actually supposed to be loving each other, and it's going to be okay." And I was on a spiritual retreat the last couple of months, and a lot of stuff came up. But one of the things that came up is that it's going to be all right. Ultimately, it's all programmed, to use that language, by God, if you will. The universe is conscious. It's all conscious. It's all God. And so are you. And it's going to be okay. And we have Julian in Norwich, who was a Christian mystic in 1400s, I think, 1500s, maybe, the time of the Black Death in Europe. And we don't know a lot about her, except she was anchoress in a church in Norwich in England, which has really been hit by the plague bad. And they think she probably lost. I mean, when she had her visit, she was like 30 years old. So she probably had, her husband and children had died during this thing. And she knew how to read and write. And, back then, maybe 10% of men knew how to read and write back in that time in England, and women was much smaller. So somehow she'd learned how to do this in her former life, and she wrote some of the most beautiful prose in Middle English that ever was. I mean, she's right up there with Chaucer and maybe a little above him. So, but all that to say this, what she said was, and this is a very famous quote of hers, and this was basically buried underground, her teachings, her revelations for 500 years, because the church at that time couldn't handle it. The church at that time, the main power thing is you got to go to church and you got to do everything we say, or you're going to burn in hell forever. Well, okay. And she didn't say that at all. She says God is love and God doesn't burn us in hell forever. And she went against that. But she said, all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. And this was just on her deathbed. And probably we can only imagine that her whole family had died. And Jesus told her this. All will be well. So sit with that. All will be well. All manner of things shall be well. And that's what I got to before I'd heard of her, before I started getting into Julian and Norwich. And that's important to remember. And that might help us if we can get, I mean, that's a beautiful, comforting idea, but if we can get that as a knowing deeper than just intellectual knowing. And I have nothing against intellectual knowing. It's a really amazing thing. And we have an amazing capacity as humans. But to get that at a deeper level. And that will help us be more at peace in life, and help us to look at all the suffering and all the injustice and all the crazy ass things that are happening, and all our just, apparently stupidity, as human beings, and incredible inventiveness, all this technology, but we don't seem to know how to use it, and to use it in a wise way. Although we've made some progress, at least we talk about it now, and it'll help you live better, and it'll help you die better. It's going to be okay. And one of my moments, occasionally I get these things, these experiences where it's just like, I feel like the oracles of God are open to me. It's like the old story with the genies, and you get 3 wishes. Don't mess them up. Don't ask the wrong thing. But this is not wishes. It's just like I'm in this place of deep, deep understanding and wisdom. And so I was like, wow, what should I ask you? And I thought, oh, here's a big one. What about death? What about death? That was my question. And the answer came very clearly. And God said, and how do I know it was God? Because I know, these things that right? He said, she said, God said, I will be there. Okay. And my prior experience with spirit, with God, had taught me that God is love. And that's a quote, I think, from First John, the epistle in the Bible. And some people have said you could throw the rest of it all away, all the scriptures away, and just keep that little phrase, and that would be enough to keep us going, and enough to keep us pointed in the right direction. So God is love, and God said, I will be there. So we are not alone, never have been, and we will not be alone in death. And Meister Eckhart, again, another medieval Christian mystic who was accused of heresy, or his teachings were called heretical. And anyway, he died before they could get hurted. He said that nothing is lost in God. Nothing is lost. So you think about that, and I have, and all the tragedies, and I mean, life is a real tragedy. Everybody, you're going to die. Everybody you love is going to die. That's just a given, the way it goes. But nothing is lost in God, and all of these were all manifestations of that great spirit, and it is not lost. We are transmuted, we are transcended, we are changed, but we're not lost. So talk to God. And I think it's also okay to talk to people that you love that have passed on. I have several family members, and maybe some that I had issues with, that I've worked it out after they passed, and I feel the presence of teachers that I have with me very strongly, and that's a great comfort. And it's just this, it's the way it is. So anyway, I'll stop talking, and let's just use this time as your rendezvous with God, your rendezvous with the beloved, your time just to relax in the spirit and feel the love that you are, and the love that is coming at us all the time, and ask for help so that we don't we realize it consciously, and not merely as a mental idea, an intellectual idea, which is not bad, but it ain't enough. So let's go deep. And today we're doing, let's see, we're doing Alpha Arising, and this is alpha brainwave state, which is, it's when they first started doing this technology, everybody thought that alpha was the perfect meditation zone, because lots of experienced deep meditators would go to alpha in their initial experiments. So it is still a very good thing. You calm down to focus, to put you right there. So this is 27 minutes and 50 seconds. although it may seem like 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Just depends how these things work out. So without further stuff and talk, let's get rolling. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hi, Pam. Louis keeps changing into my wife, and you say the age of miracles is past. I don't think so. Anyway, hi, sweetie. Um, yeah, it was a very, anyway, it's a very powerful track, and a lot of times things come up in meditation for me, things that I really care about, people that I really care about that may not be in the best place, and things that are happening in the world. And what I have learned to do is just allow that to be there. And comes up. This is kind of where I was feeling it today, kind of a little above the center of the heart, and a little below the throat. And I just say, thank you, teacher. And these things are all beyond my capacity to fix in most cases. So just to sit with that and let it be there, and just feel it, and just bless it, and know that the way we find our answers in these conundrums is through the darkness, and it's through the pain. It's just being present with it, and by avoiding it, that's for sure, or not looking at meditation and prayer to be an escape from the pain. It's not. It's a path through the pain to compassion, and God's the light that we find in the darkness. And so just thank you for being there. Thank you for me feeling this. Thank you for the capacity to care. Thank you for the great mystery and not understanding everything and how this all works. However, then we have those moments where we see through it, and we know that all will be well. All will be well. All manner of things will be well. So sit with it, sit with the hurt, and that can transform us, and that can also, it can connect us, because sometimes in the darkness and in the suffering and in the prison cells of our own minds that we get into, sometimes we think that we're alone. Well, we're definitely not. Think of all the other human beings in the world that are suffering, all the other sentient beings in the world, and add that to what's in your heart, and just breathe into it and breathe out, and and that's really when we have to rely on the higher power, the deeper part of ourselves, spirit, grace, however that you want to say that. And to stay with that. And if we do, it will be okay. And it will save us a lot of time, either by trying to avoid the pain or trying to medicate the pain or something, or just split off from the pain. I mean, these are all very understandable ways of coping with pain and coping with suffering, and very understandable. What's the problem is it just doesn't work in the long term. Eventually we have to just to be open and be present to it, and that's kind of the the story of the cross and the crucifixion. That Jesus was there and took all the pain of the world, past, future, present, and he just took it on himself. So it was more than just, being crucified and tortured in a horrible way. And it was also the story of the Buddha. He, they tried to protect him from pain, suffering, and all the stuff. That's the story goes. And he was, you had the Brahmins who were the top of the chain, and then you had the warrior class, which he was. And when he was born, there was a vision. I think it was a white elephant, and the interpretation was, this guy's going to conquer the world, going to be the greatest, general that ever was, or he's going to be the greatest. He's going to light up the world. He's going to be an enlightened being. So there seemed to be a choicefulness. So he left home. He left his beautiful wife and his beautiful child and his beautiful home, and he went out in the world and tried to figure out how to deal with this stuff. And then he went through these ascetic practices of like standing on one foot and drinking urine and eating worse and living on one grain of rice a day, so the story goes. And eventually a woman from the village came and fed him, because he was just a skeleton walking. And she gave him some kind of rice and milk concoction and brought strength back to his body. And then he went to the famous Bodhi tree, and there's still the place in India where a descendant from the original Bodhi tree is. And there's this big temple, but the temple's not that sacred, it's that tree. And the Buddha sat under there, and it was very much like the story of Christ, where he just sat there and says, I'm just not going to move until I get it. I'm going to stay with it. And then all the temptations and all the demons of hell, just came at him. Said, nope. And he touched the earth. Just touched the earth. He grounded himself in Mother Earth and said, here I stand. And I ain't moving. So he woke up, and continued to opened up a path for all of humanity and for the Dharma, for that to happen. And the Buddha said, don't worship me, don't, you need to be a Buddha. And the Buddha means he woke up, and that's what you need to do, is you need to wake up. And Lama Surya Das, one of my favorite Buddhist teachers, we have him on there, had a great conversation with him on a deep transformation. And one of his sayings is, would you rather be a Buddhist or a Buddha? Well, yeah. And that's very back to the original teachings, as far as we know, of what the Buddha said, because they didn't start writing it down until about 500 years after he died. But there were all the stories, and the teaching was relatively simple. So that's what we're here to do. And there is no problem that is facing us as a species, and we're kind of the top of the food chain, like it or not. We should be the guardians of the earth, of our mother, of all living beings, because for better, for worse, we emerged out of the earth with these incredible godlike capacities in our technologies. And, we have this telescope that's 1 million miles from Earth, 1 million miles. And went out there and sending back information from the very beginnings of the universe, stuff that we'd never seen before. And they're seeing things that didn't quite fit the story that we had before the James Webb went up there. They found that these very, 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 and they can see back in time. Okay, talk about a time machine. I'm not exactly sure how that does, but light is, we know the speed of light, and we know when we're seeing things of certain places from what part of history it comes from. And back in these very early days, 13 billion years ago and change, there's a bunch of galaxies, and they're really well-formed, organized galaxies, and they're not supposed to be there. That was the old story. What we understood is that it took a while. It took several 100 million years for these things to start, or a billion years or something, whatever it was. But now there's these very organized things are showing up where we didn't think they would be. And so, what does that mean? Well, it means we have to rethink our theory series of sciences, and I would say that's even more indication that this is not random. There is a conscious organizing thing that's going on here. And if you don't believe me, go spend a month in the wilderness or in the southern Utah wilderness. Just hang out and sleep under the stars. And and they used to say there's no atheists in foxholes, right? When the rounds were coming in, you're like, well, I don't believe in God. You're praying your ass off. God, okay, I'm sorry, I'll be good. I'll tell you, just help me. And the same thing with, and I added up one time, and I don't know exactly how much more, but I spent more than 2,000 nights sleeping under the stars in the wilderness in my career as a wilderness guide in this part of the world. I was deeply affected. And I noticed the change in my students too. That we would start having conversations a few weeks into this about spirituality and stuff that they just were pissed off at, equated it with stupid churches and God, and it's all a big con, and et cetera, whatever. And they started getting, okay, yeah, it's something's happening here. I mean, what it is ain't exactly clear, right? But there's something happening here, and at that point we begin to explore the deepest levels of reality as a small community traveling through the wilderness like our ancestors did. So yeah, and as I was saying, there's no issues even with the global warming and the radical weather changes that we're going through all over the world now. I mean, this is the hottest summer in the history of summers since they've been picking, writing all this stuff down, and just the weather patterns are going nuts. And so it's very hard to deny that we're not going through a radical change in weather, and it's getting harder rather to deny that good old you and me had something to do with it. Although there are people that still say that. But yeah, I don't think their motives are exactly pure. I think they're just trying to, I don't know, protect their industry or their rice bowl, whatever that might be, by denying any responsibility. But all that, so this is where all the problems are here in you and me. And therefore, it follows that the only place where there are solutions is here, you and me. Given that, okay, that we have a responsibility in time to our ancestors who sacrificed to give us life, and to all our brothers and sisters that are on the planet right now, and for the generations to come, to wake the hell up and get through our hatreds and our prejudices and our anxiety and our despair and our cynicism, or whatever the hell we do with this stuff, and go to the source inside of ourselves and come back to behave in a way that it's awake, that all the great teachers and all the great traditions have been pointing to, whether it's the ancestral stuff or the stuff that I know, the Plains Indians, the Lakota, Dakota, Cheyenne, and it's all there. And yeah, so that's why we do WeAwake. We created these tools so that we can meditate more quickly, more effectively, because things are just intensifying. Changes are happening so rapidly. And yeah, if we need to look for hope, well, the first place to start is to look inside of yourself, and then you'll see it. So yeah, don't avoid the pain. Bless it. Say thank you, teacher, and allow it to do its transforming job. Pain resisted can do all kinds of things. It can be the roots of addiction, heart disease, cancer, you name it. A pain owned and accepted can be the pathway to enlightenment, to compassion, right? And wisdom. And wisdom, yeah. Guy said one time, my religion is wisdom. I like that. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge that is enlightening, that is transformative. It's a manifestation of love, and not goofy love, but skillful love. And yeah, so wisdom, let that be your religion. And as all the great teachers said, look inside and then look outside too. In the Gospel of Thomas that showed up in 1948 in a jar in a little town called Nag Hammadi in Egypt. She said the kingdom of God is within you, right? Which Jesus said in the canonical Gospels, the ones that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But in this one, he says it's within you and it's without you. It is everywhere. Open your heart, open your eyes. There it is. So God gives eyes to see and hearts to feel, and the courage to walk the path and do our rinky-dink little part, and then be open to the grace that's always there. And I think that's probably more than enough today, right? But anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Sabi and Louis and Heidi. And anyway, go deep, find God, and bring your gifts to the world. That's exactly, that's what we're here to do. And it is amazing. The great sacred, I've started to call it just the great sacred. The whole thing is just the great sacred. So that helps us see that and wake up to that. Anyway, namaste. Love you guys. Thank you.